Little Tom, little Tom of the Hobbs family. Capture humor while traveling. Capture humor while traveling. Elf Little Tom of the Hobbs family.
Times, I guess you do your own intro. Unless Paula can find it again, I'll give her an opportunity.
I cannot find it. I looked everywhere, but my office is filled with toys, so I'm going to ask you to say your own intro, please, little Tom.
I haven't been called Little Tom since, boy. I tell you, I know where this lady lives, and I know the right elves to send her away. Marjane, can you take care of that audio,
It's
please?
meant with love. I do not have them, Marjane. If you can, please send them to me. I cannot pull them. I'm unable to get on the website.
Yeah, powerful. Free and unlimited resources for entertainment, enhancing your presentations. I believe that's true through this very simple method. You can add humor to your presentations. Now, by adding humor, people listen longer, people are engaged better, and they want to find out more what you do. So it's a positive hook that we can all do. Now, the joys of for traveling enhances that. Today, you will learn how to shift your struggles, shall we say, while traveling into connectors that will connect for you and your audiences simply by remembering to keep some notes while the struggles begin. Because once you have distance and struggle, you can find the humor. TSA in the United States, the Travel Security Authority at the airport, seems to believe toothpaste can be a weapon of mass destruction. Keep your eyes open when you're traveling because often it still happens. It's full of those unexpected moments where joys and silliness and people do come into play. All little absurdities that if you'll take those notes, and if you're going traveling to present at a conference or training event, and you remember those little absurdities, you'll find that many in the audience share that common experience and they'll start chuckling with you because the cool thing was they were not in that same line that you were. That was the cool part for them. And that's what we want to watch for. So there's several ways you can watch for these. I'm going to share some examples. Even myself, just recently, I left from Denver, Colorado, traveling one of the greatest, largest airports in the United States, heading towards Atlanta onto Tallahassee, Florida, another key spot in the world. And I knew I needed to leave by a certain time because my airline would be leaving at 8:05 with my flight. And I needed time to get to the airport and time to check in and time to stand in the line. And I utilized Uber to get me to the airport. So I prearranged it the night before, like a smart person. Well, I'm smart in many ways, I'd say. And I had it set for 5:45, a later flight for some of us. And at 5:35, I happened to get a text from, a simple little text from Delta Airlines notifying me that there's a challenge with my flight, a struggle. Well, they said delay. It was that the plane would be delayed approximately 30 minutes. Okay, well, that won't change my Uber. And so I'm ready for my Uber. 3.5 minutes later, another text come in from Delta. We do apologize. Your flight will now be delayed 1 hour, 35 minutes. Ooh. Now that concerns me a little bit because I have a connection in Atlanta to go to Tallahassee and they were already close. This may be more challenge. All right, stay centered. Get to the airport. They might find you a new flight. And I look and Uber is sending me a text. You are 4 minutes away. Cool. 5 minutes later, I look, I get a new text. Uber is 6 minutes away. I go, what? Now, here's a cool thing. Raise your hand if you use Uber or Lyft at any time, right? So we have this common situation. So you realize that the cool thing about them is they have a little map that shows where your driver is at in location to you. And as they're driving around, you can tell when they're getting closer. Well, I looked, and sure enough, my driver was on the main street about 2 blocks from my house. Cool. I finished my coffee, rinse it out, set it back in the drainer, grab my last bag that others are already set by the curb. And I walk on out, all confident that things are handled. And I watch as he continued to drive right on past my main entry. I look on my phone, and sure enough, that map, he is driving right past. I go, well, there's 2 ways to come in. Maybe he's trying the other way. It's not as easy. And he watched as he continued to drive around the other direction. Then he did a U-turn and drove completely the other direction. Continued out of my neighborhood. So I sent him a quick text. You just passed the road. All you do is 1 quick U-turn and we're there. No reply. I continued to watch on the map. It was so cool. And he did a square block. That was kind of cool. But when he came out of the block, he turned right instead of left and went farther away from my home. And then he continued further. And I sent him 1 more text. Are you sure you're going to make it? Because now you're going west. You're almost 3 miles away. No response. But I watched. He did pull off and do another block. And I thought I was watching and playing the 1980s game Pac-Man. Beep, 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 you know. I did go ahead and declare an emergency after 40 minutes, canceled the ride, ordered a new one. 4 minutes later, I had a new driver. I was at the airport on time. Struggles and a little bit of time. Now it's funny. You can have that too. You can utilize that. That's okay. Try it. Little time, little space. But as you can see, and even in this room, we all have a commonality, the challenges of traveling, get to the airport on time. And many of us have the challenge of doing Uber and Lyft. Airports, common situation, taxis, get to the airport, getting to your hotel. If you're going to a conference, it's always fun. And I had Uber taking me to a conference several years back at Kansas City. Beautiful, fun little place to get to. And there happened to be an event going on there that I was going to, which was the National Storytellers Conference. Fun gathering at the Hyatt. And there was a second event going on. Fun for some, not so much for others. And I watched the presidential parade, you'd call that, or, well, 5 Hummers, 2 limos, and a Trump car driving the opposite direction through town as I was leaving the airport. Well, I got to the Hyatt and I'm standing in line to check in. And sure enough, that's where that individual had been speaking for a big event. All the security guards were breaking things down, putting things in their pack. And I'm standing at the line and I made a comment and they seemed to grab all their gear again and come back to the front desk. Because I just happened to ask if this was the real place for the Storytellers Conference. And they says, no, that dude already left. And then they realized, wait a minute, you're at the real Storytellers Conference. I'm sorry, you're at the Hyatt South, not this one. They got me transferred. Being aware of the situations around you can find that little bit of humor. Take the notes, write them down. If you don't have a little star by your name in the National Crime Investigator Society that you've made comments about the president at the time is probably a wise thing too. That may not be as humorous to some people. Just be mindful of it. Now we have a situation in the large airport that I'm used to traveling in and out of. Think about the airports you travel in and out of. You may have something similar. In Denver International, we are one of the largest airports in the United States, which is cool. But we're known for several things. One of them is this very large blue statue. Bluiferous, they call him sometimes. He looks like a psycho horse. His eyes light up. It's kind of a cool statue, but it's kind of psycho. And there is a little history. There was an unfortunate death to the sculptor who made this during the building of it. Well, as I flew out, I noticed they've added a new situation in the airport. Now we have a green reindeer that you can sit and get your picture taken next to. The blue and the green deer. Notice the oddities that are around. So maybe a blue horse and a green reindeer is not as odd as maybe getting out of the airport on time departures. I think that would be a little bit more fun. But that's my personal opinion. How can you find that? Has anybody thought, now that we've primed the pump a little bit, of your main airport that you travel out of, or maybe a train station, that is a well-known item that's kind of funny, like our blue horse in Denver, the green reindeer? Who has seen something that's, they could think about it a little bit differently, that others may go, that's odd. Raise your hand, so I'm gonna have to volunteer and voluntold everybody. Sue's lived in Tallahassee for a long time in the area, and their famed airport. It's a huge metropolis of what, 4 gates now, I believe. It took them 2 years to redo one of the 2 main restrooms on the security side, but they're actively at things, right? Now, Sue, she's travels the area, and they've got a very nice interstate road nearby and state road that in the past 5 years since I've been flying down here, have you noticed they went from a 2.5 lane, nice constructed road to now a 3.5 lane wide road? And the same large pile of dirt by the construction area has now been moved, what is it, 4 times? Airport's still very nice. Many nice people. But noticing the little differences, I did notice as we landed, though, that they have that new roundabout, a circle drive. They have it, a roundabout that's very European, but more and more throughout the United States. It's very nice, but it really doesn't go anywhere. Maybe they have a plan for it. Any state employees of Florida have the guts to call up Ron and ask him? If you want, his phone number's in the chat. Go for it. Now, would you really say that at a conference and put somebody's phone number that's like potentially the governor of the state in the chat for everybody? Well, maybe you wouldn't, but time and distance. You could find that. You can find that too. Got an idea. I see people's eyes are opening. Who can think of a time in travel for you, a one time? Tensions was high, but the tension was dispelled because somebody found a humorous way to restate it. I'm looking in the eyes before I call on somebody. Now, Stan is new to the group, so he doesn't know that we don't play favorites. We pick on everybody. One time after traveling long distances. Do you know what time it is? Because I didn't find my watch. And the same bewildered man looked over at me and goes, yeah, it's Tuesday. That point in time, both realized that travel can be exhausting. Travel can be fun. And as you can see, I've dressed up for the holidays today. You'll notice travel attire has changed since the 60s or 70s even. As a child, my father worked for the airlines and we had to travel a fair amount, but we always had to wear a jacket and tie as airline employees. Not necessarily this jacket. Nowadays, if you have and you think they're designer worthy of having those ripped at. We would have been kicked out long ago. Maybe even gotten a letter in the employee manual about us if we would have showed up it that way. But it's the way things have changed. And you too can allow and have the fun. I've noticed a lot of people have now currently chosen to wear their pajamas while traveling. I can tell I see the one that has a little drop trowel on the back. And I have no idea how embarrassing it might be for whoever's standing next to me when that happens. I probably don't care. But that's part of being a little brother, because I look at things that way. And you can look at things a little twisted too. You don't have to put Ron's phone number in or call somebody out on it, but you can find those ways, and I encourage you to. Now, as a speaker and presenter, when we find these little moments and we want to insert them into our presentation, by a show of hands, how many think it needs to be like a really long story about the incident? Put your hands up in the air if you think it needs to be a really long story. About one hand if you think it needs to be, just a medium story. Shauna, how about, can it be just maybe even a 3-word story? It can. And that little bit of tension can break and help make those connections to you and your audience, the group you're training, the group you're entertaining, the group that you're there to show up for, because they are your special people. The challenge is use humor to break the tension after a serious moment or talk. But I'm going to caution you, use the humor to break the tension, never to belittle the seriousness of the previous statement. As fun as it is to talk about someone we don't want to talk about, other shoes, or their army music, depending on how far back you go with those jokes. Use humor to break the tension. You can find it everywhere. And have you noticed that a lot of times when you travel at the airport, you get all the little bottles that you want to get? Has anybody ever really used the little shower caps that they offer sometimes? Now, some of you may be looking through the screen right now and think that I'm just having fun being at traveling. I might be somewhere, maybe, who thinks I might even be at a hotel? You see my background, but if I change it to here, hey, I could be traveling and I'd be at a hotel, right? And have all those little goodies. Or for those, the rest of you, you might realize that I'm really at, look, Jane's house, and look at the goodies that she puts added for her. So if you come to Jane's house, you'll probably get a goodie basket with a shower cap. Miss Paula.
Thank you so much. That was a great lot of information that we could share. And I'm telling you, no shilly-shally going on there. Wow, thank you so much. Elf with the many hats. All right.